Well, welcome back to 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. And my back is killing me, but that's beside the point. I had some requests for me to cover giallos from a couple people. And not that I didn't see them, I'm just going to go by one certain director. And don't get all excited because I'm not shitting on anybody here. The director is Dario Argento, who is an acquired taste for a lot of people. But be that as it may, his films did play, but here's the problem. All right, we go, let's see, 1971, Cat o' Nine Tails. All right, of course they used the blurb, you know, comparing it to Psycho and all this other shit. The problem with some of these films were the running times. Because basically in exploitation, grindhouse films ideally should run not too much over 90 minutes. So what happened was, and these both came out in 71 around here, and the thing was, I think I'd said this before, back in the early 70s, we were lucky if we got a couple horror films a month released. Sometimes you would go a month without even seeing a horror film advertised. So when something popped up that looked like a horror film, yeah, we would go see it. And like I said, early 70s, especially in the warmer weather, was drive-in time. So we would go see Cat o' Nine Tails at a drive-in and be sort of bored out of our skulls because we weren't into the art house type thing back then. None of us were. And honestly, these films belonged in an art house type setting. Maybe they were art house horror films. I don't know. All I know is that in 71, two of his films came out, Cat o' Nine Tails, which ran an hour and 52 minutes, and Four Flies on Grey Velvet, which ran an hour and 44 minutes. Too fucking long. Then in 75, he put out Deep Red, which ran 2 hours and 7 minutes. And I can remember going to see that in the theater. It was basically, I'm trying to think now, it was after the weekend. So it had to be like on a Monday or Tuesday night over on the Deuce. And we should have been tipped off immediately when we got in there that there were very few people in the theater around 8 o'clock at night, which is prime time. So honestly, this thing was too long, too drawn out, and between the murders, we were sort of bored out of our skulls. Luckily, whatever the co-feature was sort of livened it up after that. But my point is that these films weren't made for grindhouses and drive-ins. They were more of like an art house type deal or some kind of thing. And like I said, I'm not down on Argento as a director or a screenwriter or anything like that. Honestly, I think he hit his stride with Suspiria in 1977, which ran around 90 minutes and which basically pummeled you from start to finish. That whole thing, the only thing more terrifying than the first how many minutes of this film are the last 10. And they weren't wrong, because I remember when we saw that one, and that one we saw at Cinema 46 in West Paterson, New Jersey, on Route 46, and that place was notorious for showing unrated stuff like Texas Chainsaw 2, Dawn of the Dead, when that came out unrated. So, the other thing too was, we were smoking hash that night. I think that was the first time I ever smoked hash, and we decided to go see this movie. Well, that whole soundtrack by Goblin, this place had a great fucking sound system. And that pulsing, throbbing music just blew us all away. And basically when it opened up with that eyes appearing at the window and the chick getting stabbed in the heart, and it just kept continuing. I mean, that's the Argento I like. And, followed it up with Tiembre and Inferno, which basically went right to video. But Phenomenon, a.k.a. Creepers, was edited and thrown out in the U.S. market, another good film. So I pretty much liked a lot of the stuff done in that period where it was more over the top, that type of thing. But, like I said, the early stuff, we got it foisted on us because they wanted horror movies in the drive-ins and grindhouses. And, even though they were sort of horror movies, they just were too long and drawn out to watch. And, like I said, I like a lot of Argento's stuff. I mean, he was a screenwriter too. He wrote a spaghetti western called Five Man Army, which would have been really good if they didn't stick Peter Graves in the lead role, because Peter Graves looked like He didn't want to be there and came across like he was still on Mission Impossible. If there was one guy I could say that never should have been cast in a spaghetti western, it's Peter Graves. So, again, like I said, I have no, problem with Argento's work. It's just his early stuff just seemed too long drawn out and tedious for, my type of audience and what I was watching in general. I tried to give Deep Red a second look, and honestly, it's still too fucking long to get through. So, if I had to pick my favorite directors out of the Italian genre, they're all good. Mario Bava, Lucio Fulci, Sergio Martino, even Bruno Mattei, when he was given good material, was good. So, I can't just like everything, but I'm not going to shit on something just because, his first 3 or 4 movies just didn't do nothing for me. So, Giallos in general, the whole stalk and slash thing, I tell people I'm not a big fan of slasher movies, and I still aren't. Rather, be scared or something like that. The stalk and slash really never did anything for me, even though I did see the Friday the 13th, Halloween, those things. And, something, Halloween should have ended after number 2. He was burned to a fucking cinder. It's kind of like, I know the excuses back in the 40s, they'd kill Frankenstein in every damn film, but he'd always come back for the next one. He was, let's see, first one he was burned alive, but he survived by hiding in the back of the well. And then in the second one, Bride, he was blown to bits. Miraculously, he survived for Son of Frankenstein. In Son of Frankenstein, he was thrown in a sulfur pit. Miraculously, he survived for Ghost of Frankenstein, and so on and so on. But Michael Myers, dude, you've been around way too fucking long. Let's just end this shit, okay? So that's our show for today. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. Big shout outs to Grindhouse Releasing and thefuseboxshow.com for all their good work. Check them out, and we will catch you on the flip side.